Let's create an alphabet using the licorice picture tube. You can create alphabets using various tubes, whether they are directional or incremental. The licorice tube is incremental, as you can see in the toolbar. This means that every single image of the set, there are actually 288 in the set, each image will be placed one after the other, which will give that twisting effect. Now, in order to create an alphabet, you can use a regular text as a base if you want something that is a little bit more regular than totally free drawing it. So I'm using here a font that is called Kristen. I just created 4 letters, but if you want to create a whole alphabet, you will want to have all the letters on a single canvas. This way you are absolutely sure that everything is matching as far as size. This is a vector layer, and I will just keep it as a vector layer. I will only use it as a guide, so I will add a new raster layer on top where I will add my licorice. First, I'm going to do an example with the C letter. So now that I have my licorice set, I'm just using the default settings here with a scale of 100 and the step is 2. I will simply follow the line of my text. And here I have my letter. At this point, I can cut it from this layer with Control X, or I could go under Edit, Cut, and I will paste as a new image. So I can go either with Edit, Paste as a new image, or I could use Control Shift V. Now you have your letter that is ready to be saved as a PNG. Notice that there is absolutely no extra pixel. Everything is flush. This is easy enough if you have only a single strand. But what if you have something like the A letter where you have a second layer? Let's do it. So again, I'm on my raster layer and I can draw. Let's see that those two are going to be together. Now for the other piece, I want to have it on another layer. So I will add a new raster layer and add my letter. Typically, when you have layering of objects or elements that are not completely flat, you will have a shadow. I don't want to add a shadow to all the elements because the user might want to add different shadows. However, there has to be an internal shadow where the piece, the top piece, overlaps the bottom piece. So I'm going to add currently a shadow to the top piece only using Effects, 3D Effects, Drop Shadow. And since my object is fairly thick, I'm going to add a thicker shadow and fairly blurred, but not too opaque. Like at least you can see there is a shadow here. The important part now is to have that shadow on a new layer because we will manipulate it separately. You see here you have the shadow. Now I want the shadow on my object, but I do not want the shadow in between. So activating the bottom part where I want the shadow to be applied, I will activate the magic wand and I will click on the outside of my object, activating the layer with the shadow and hit the delete key. And you can deselect with Control D. So as you can see now, there is a shadow, but only on the bottom piece. In between, there isn't any. That is fine. So now what I can do is simply merge the 3 layers. So the top layer of the licorice, in this case, the shadow, and the bottom piece. So I right click, merge down, right click, merge down, and now I can repeat the process of cutting it from this layer and pasting it as a new image. So I go with Control X to cut it, Control Shift V to paste it as a new image, and now I'm ready to save it as a PNG. Now what if I have more than one element? Like maybe that B is going to be one vertical and then 2 separate loops. I can do the same thing. Again, I'm on a raster layer and I will create the vertical part, which in this case will be the bottom part. Now I will add a new raster layer to add the top loop, and if I want another loop, I add another layer, which I can add like this. Now I will have to add a shadow to the top 2 layers because the bottom one won't need any. So I will go to Effects, 3D Effects, Drop Shadow. I'll use the same settings as before, especially if you create a whole alphabet, a whole series. You want to be consistent, so you will be using the same settings. And I'll use one here also on that layer, exactly the same settings. So I will have some shadows from the top applied to the middle piece and the bottom piece. Now since I have more than one piece to keep the shadow on, I will use a different trick. So first of all, there is this shadow. So the shadow for the top part will be applied on the middle part and on the bottom part. So using the magic wand, I will now select with the match mode of opacity. I will select the vertical piece and the middle piece by holding the Shift key. So now I have both that are selected, and now I will invert because this is where I want to keep the shadow. So I go to Selection, Invert, or Control Shift I, and I will go to that layer with the shadow that I wanted to adjust and hit the Delete key and deselect with Control D, and you can see how my shadow now is only on the middle part and on the bottom part. Now for the middle part shadow, I only have to remove what is extending past the bottom part. So this way I can use the magic wand on the outside. I won't have to do any invert, and go back to my layer with the shadow, hit the Delete key, and I deselect with Control D, and here is my letter. Again, I will just have to merge those 5 layers, cut it from the raster layer, and paste it as a new image in order to save it as a PNG file to keep the transparency. And that is how you can create an alphabet using the licorice picture tube or any other similar tube. Have fun!